Welcome to Tarkov, a place where every decision matters. Every corner could hold a threat, and every raid could be your last. But what if you knew the lay of the land, and exactly where to escape when things get tough? Welcome back to episode 2 of Raid Ready. I'm Kibah, your guide through the intricate and adrenaline-fueled world of Tarkov. Typically, the goal of any raid in Escape from Tarkov is to eventually do what the namesake implies: escape. Be it by peaceful exfiltration, or violent extraction. But you can't exactly escape if you have no clue how to orient yourself, navigate a map, or even tell what the hell an exfil is. That's why today we're going to be covering probably the most boring and yet one of the most essential topics in the game: orienteering. Now, while Tarkov is not truly hardcore in its presentation of maps and orienteering skills that come with that, it is still crucial to know how to identify landmarks in order to determine where you are on a map and how to approach your chosen exfil point. But how can we choose an exfil point if we don't even know how to identify them in the first place? In the last video, we took you through a basic scav raid and showed some decision making when it came to pathing, looting, and exfilling. Now, we'll be diving into exfil identification and pathing evaluation in tandem. Take notes, there will be a quiz. But before we get to that, I'd like to remind you that I do stream over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SetoKibah every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, quite often playing Tarkov when I'm not burned out from the constant adrenaline fueling my small brain. If you have burning questions, a desire for companionship, or just want to feel better about your own play by watching my blunders, feel free to stop by. You can also find me on our Discord server linked below. I try to respond to DMs quickly and have cultivated a knowledge base of AI that look remarkably human when they type. Don't be fooled, I'm just that good. With that out of the way, let's begin. The first step to knowing extracts is to know your map. At the time of recording here, in July of 2023, Escape from Tarkov hosts 9 maps in total, these being Factory, Customs, Woods, Shoreline, Interchange, Reserve, Lighthouse, Labs, and Streets. All of these maps have certain advantages and disadvantages for various playstyles. However, how we approach these maps is very simple and straightforward. First, we determine our spawn location. The Tarkov wiki provides many different maps of each location. I have the 2-dimensional maps I prefer linked below. For a brand new beginner to this game, it's heavily advised to choose one map and learn it at an average level of play before branching to other maps. You are, of course, allowed to play this game however you want. My advice for a new player would be to pick a map that suits your preferred playstyle, if you know of one already. If I were starting over today as an example, My first choice would be Shoreline or Woods due to my preference of bolt-action rifles and ambush tactics over head-on conflict. However, for today's example, we'll be covering a map that most people tend to get familiar with rather quickly: Customs. This map is a hotspot for early tasks and is a fairly quick raid if you happen to get loaded with loot early on. Upfront disclaimer, this is not a customs guide, this is a map reading and extraction understanding tutorial. In-depth knowledge of any map comes with time, and learning how to read and use maps to your advantage will also increase your chances of survival overall. Now, let's begin with the breakdown. I'll go over how I see the map and judge my courses of potential action based on the information on the map. Do note that I have bias on these decisions because of experience on the map itself. Your goals and approaches might differ, and that's okay. Play the game how you want, but keep some of my methods in mind. Now, let's bring up the customs map. The key note to keep in mind is that the legend might differ for different maps, but as long as you read them correctly, you'll be able to determine possible locations and make a game plan. At first, you won't have access to the game's compass for judging direction. This is where landmarks will become a key part for your navigation play. So let's break down what we're dealing with. We've got 12 spawns on the left and 10 on the right, indicated by the yellow arrows pointing down. That makes 22 potential spawns you can have. I can tell you now of 2 other possible spawns that are not listed here and here. Keep in mind that maps may not always be fully updated. Use them as a general guideline more than gospel truth. So with 24 spawns we know of, that may seem like a daunting amount of information, but really, all you have to worry about is what side of the map you spawn on. The general rule of Tarkov is that wherever you spawn, you take the opposite side Exfils to leave the map. There are some exceptions to this rule, but that's the basic idea to go with for now. Speaking of Exfils, we can see that there are 3 Exfils on the left, 2 on the right, and 4 in about the center of the map. Something to note about these Exfils, not every Exfil is a guaranteed Exfil. If you tap the O key twice on your keyboard in Raid, you'll get a list of Exfils available to you at any time. You'll notice some have question marks by them. These are potential Exfils, but are not guaranteed. For the purposes of customs, let's make it simple. If we spawn on the right, our goal is to get to ZB1011. If we spawn on the left, our goal is to get to Crossroads. Nice and simple. Having broken that down, now we can get to the nitty-gritty, the game plan. For our purposes here, we will create a game plan for each side of the map, in order to account for the random nature of the spawns. We will then make a path to the Exfil, looting along the way, and Exfil. Remember, our goal is to survive, not necessarily to fight. We need to be good at living before we get good at dealing death. So, let's draw out a general plan. If we spawn left, we look for the nearest cover or concealment and get our bearings. Key landmarks will be to look for this military base checkpoint, the main road that cuts the map, and what appears to be a long complex of sorts. We can assume industrial of some type due to the factory corner text in the top left and the warehouse text in the center. Once we've determined position, we can start making our way to the east. We'll know we're in the right direction if we put the industrial building to our left and take the road. We know we have some obstacles in the way, and we have 4 potential crossing points at the river. Since our goal is Crossroads, we'll try to stay on the right hand side, but we can shift and adapt as needed. For the right hand spawn, we know that we'll be spawning in tight quarters with plenty of other spawns potentially. If we have the opportunity, distance is our friend, and we'd like to cross. However, should that not be an option, we can choose to wait out the competition and use patience. Once we have made the crossing, we'll be looking to traverse the jungle of buildings and objects in this zone. Previous experience grants me knowledge of hotspots of activity, but we'll continue to use audio cues to determine our pathing. We'll use the old gas station as our pass-through point, since it's a possible exfil we can use. But we'll plan on ZB1011 since it's guaranteed, but keep old gas optional. We'll know if old gas is available by the presence of green smoke at the front. After exiting old gas, we can see large warehouses with lots of loot opportunities should we need them. This could be beneficial, but could also be a trap. We'll play it by ear. We also know that ZB1012 is a possible exfil, and we'll know if it's functional by a bright floodlight on the bunker. So, now we have our general game plan, and it's really as simple as that. There's certainly more that you can get into in terms of planning, but it's best to always KISS. No, not me, I mean KISS. The more complicated you make it, the more can go wrong and trip you up. It's good to consider information, much like we did here, but there's not much more benefit in making a plan that's too complex. In order to keep this video at a reasonable length, we won't be conducting the planned raid this video. That will tie nicely to the next one instead. However, since we know we'll head to customs, we'll see who's been paying attention. Using the info provided, comment below what ranges of engagement you'd be likely to encounter, and what you think a good kit would be. Mainly cover the weapon you'd take and why. Don't worry too much about the rest of the gear. You're expected to be a beginner after all. Don't be afraid to get anything wrong. Pause the video now, have a look at your stash, pick the weapon you think you'd take. Now, either you paused and put down a comment, probably tripping over that subscribe button along the way, or you kept going and didn't want to participate in class. Either way, let me show you what I'd be likely to take if I were heading into customs as a newer player today. Quite simply, I'll be taking a submachine gun or a more compact AR, AK of some type. The reasoning is simple. I plan to be holding tight corners that won't be suitable for a long gun, but I want a bit more killing power than just a handgun. I can highly recommend the PP-19 as a submachine gun choice, given that it's a personal favorite of mine. The ammo is pretty cheap, and you don't really have to modify it much to get it to fire nice and cleanly. Or an AKS-74U, as it's a cheap and accessible rifle, serviceable ammo, and it's easy to find better ammo during the raid if you're running dry. So, that covers map reading and exfils. This one is a bit of a more boring topic, but it's essential for future videos to lay down this foundation. Hopefully it was a little more entertaining than death by PowerPoint, and maybe you gained something out of this. If you feel the topic wasn't covered enough for your needs, do feel free to message me on Discord by taking the link below to the server. I'm always happy to answer questions or engage in conversation when available. If a live demonstration would be more up your alley, you can always catch a live stream on Twitch, just like we discussed before. If learning is what you want, we regularly teach the concepts discussed in these videos in live scenarios, both in solo and squad conditions. Thank you again for watching, hope you're able to gain some value from this. Don't be afraid to let me know what you liked or didn't like down below, I can always use the feedback. Until next time, stay safe out there, and remember, it's just a game.